What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and we're back for another episode of the Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series. So in the previous episode, we went over creating our pause menu when we press an input, and then being able to use our mouse to navigate between these options so we can still control characters and things while the game is paused, which we don't want to be able to do. We want to make sure that the game is actually paused, the timer should be stopped, all movement should be stopped. And we should switch control to the widget that we created for the pause menu. We did, however, implement the pause menu feature so we can do a rematch to reload the level that we were in. We can pause it and resume, and we can go to the main menu. So all these things we want to do with our pause menu by creating the Widget Navigation interface. And I'll go over this more as the episode continues, but essentially think of it as a place we can send all of our inputs to, and it will dish it out to all the appropriate blueprints or widgets, and that way our menus can be navigated much more easily. We won't have to create custom events for all of our movement or functions to capture all of our inputs. And that is the real key of today's episode. This is general movement, general widget navigation episode for the platform fighter. Now, before we hop into this episode, if you want to get caught up in the entire series so you can see how we've done things like attacks and hitboxes, or if you're interested in things like our movement or items, I can link you to the entire playlist to the Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series right here in the top right corner, and you can follow along with the series one-to-one. Alternatively, if you don't care about that and you only care about the pause menu, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to watch the whole series to follow that. I do recommend you watch part 1 where we created the pause menu, as we will be expanding upon that logic today. So if you watch the previous one,
you'll be able to easily test the Widget Navigation interface.
I'll link that right here in the top right corner for you as well. Now with that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. So this is a code and blueprint tutorial series. We're going to be doing a mix of code and blueprints today. And let's start by going to our pause menu. So it's in blueprints, widgets, menus, pause menu. So here's our widget, looking good. Our graph is very simple. We set a game instance reference so that we can use it in a few places, specifically when performing a rematch. And then we have the ability to go to the main menu or to remove the pause menu when we hit resume. Now, if we go to the code and go to our base player controller.cpp, this is the logic that we set up to create our pause menu. So basically, we get the pause menu class, then we create the widget and add it to the viewport. But we have no actual control over what happens on this menu when we press inputs on our keyboard or controller. So first thing we want to do when we're in our pause menu is go to event construct. And something we weren't doing last time that we should be doing is actually pausing the game. So there is a function, setGamePaused, that we can enable when we come in here once the menu is constructed. And we want to set it to paused as soon as this is constructed, because that will actually stop our tick rates and our time dilation and all of this. So when we come in here, pause our game, everything is going to stay as is. We no longer have control of our characters or anything that I showed earlier in this episode. Unreal already has that functionality built in. You just have to call it. And then when we resume it, we're going to have to unpause the game. That way we don't get stuck like this. So let's go into our pause menu and go to unpressed resume button. And we need to set game paused to false. Now, since both these other methods are traveling, the game won't be paused. And we don't have to actually unpause the game at that point. So to give you an example, if I come in here and pause the game, everything looks good, then I can resume and the game continues to play. So great, that's what I would expect from a pause menu. Now I can pause the game and go to rematch. This is just going to work because it reloaded the level. It naturally unpaused everything. And same with if we go to the main menu, this is loading the main menu, so everything is going to be unpaused. So that already tackles one of the major issues or missing elements of our pause menu, the actual pausing. And it's that simple to implement. So now that's done, we can go back and now we can go to our pause menu. And because we want such specific behavior on here, I want to create an interface or some way to interact with my widgets from the code. That way I can easily send commands to them based on inputs that we pressed. We can do that with what I like to call the Widget Navigation interface. And for those of you that have watched several other of my projects or tutorials, you may be familiar with this because I do it a lot, but it is so incredibly powerful. So if we go to our C++ folder or C++ classes in our content browser, go into where we make our code classes, right click and make a new C++ class. In common classes, we can scroll down to the bottom to get to something called an Unreal Interface. It's a UObject interface class to be implemented by other UObject based classes. This will work. So we can go to next, and then we can type Widget Navigation Interface. We can create the class. Now in the CPP file, we're not going to do anything. I'm just going to clean it up like that and leave it alone. But in the header file, we are going to make our functions. So you can see it live coded and created this class for me. But now I want to go out to Visual Studio. And I'm just going to clean it up a little bit here. So basically what we're doing is making a class called Widget Navigation Interface, and then we have an interface for this class. This is our interface where we're going to add our functions. And before we even add anything, let's make sure that our U interface right here is minimal API, comma, blueprintable. Because if it is not blueprintable, then we cannot have blueprints or widgets implement this interface, and if we can't do that, then we won't be able to send inputs to them. Now at this point, it's as simple as making the functions that we can think to create. So the whole point of this widget navigation interface is so that we can send commands to it, such as move up, move down, move left, move right, confirm, take a snapshot, go to photo mode, whatever the case may be. And because I want our system to be pretty vast here, I want all of our widgets to implement this interface to be able to do all of these things. They might not all have to do these things. We can choose which widgets implement which functions from the interface. So let's start with some basics. We want to make these ufunction blueprint implementable event blueprint callable. So we can fill out all the behavior for them in the blueprint or in the widget. And then we can also call them from within the widget if we want to. Then we just make the functions. So void menu up. Or you can call it move up if you'd prefer. That's what I typically use in my other series. That way if moving has different behavior on this menu, say you're scrolling a list or something, it is still an accurate name. But whatever you call it is fine. Let's just throw in some basics for here. I'll copy this U function and paste it, and we'll make void move down, void move left, and void move right. We haven't implemented this interface anywhere, but if we do, then we will be able to have access to these functions. It's very simple. So if we play the game again, when we get into the editor, if we go back to our pause menu widget, we can go to the graph and we can go to class settings. In here we can determine what interfaces this widget or this blueprint implements. So if you scroll down here to interfaces, there is the inherited interfaces, and then there's the implemented interfaces. You can go to add next to implemented interfaces and go look for widget navigation interface. And once you do that, it will be added to the list here. You can get rid of it by pressing the X if you ever want to. Then compile and save, and we will be able to get these functions that we made. So we can type move up. And this is calling the function, the one that says call function. This is the one on the class, like if you were going to call it from elsewhere, from our blueprint callable node. And then the event itself is event move up, and this is the one that we can use to then perform logic when the appropriate input is pressed. So say we press up on our keyboard, we would send this event, and then we would print a string, for example. Really what we would do is move up an element in our widget. But a print string will work for this episode. We just want to make sure that we can set up our widget navigation interface. So we can do this for all of them. Event move down, event move left, and event move right. So move up is up, move down is down, move left is left, move right is right. Now, wherever we call these from, we will be able to print this string because the widget will understand that we called a function on the interface and this widget implements that interface, so it should respond to it accordingly. As a very, very basic example, when we come into the blueprint in event construct here, we could call move up on the widget navigation interface that I was showing you earlier, and this should print up as soon as we load the pause menu. And it does. And I understand that that might not be that impressive or seem important right now, but what we've just unlocked by doing this is being able to send inputs to any widget, or really any blueprint, but mainly any widget from one spot, specifically our player controller. So remember that our player controller in the previous episode is what allowed us to create the pause menu. It's also going to be binding all the input actions for up, down, left, right, things like that. And so when we press those inputs while a menu is open, we can navigate that menu. That means we don't have to capture input on every widget. We can just capture it in the player controller and send it to the widget, and the widget will handle the behavior. So we could come into our pause menu and say we don't want to move left or move right on our pause menu right now, so I don't have to handle them in here. So for the next episode, I will go over moving up and down on our pause menu, and I'll do it using the widget navigation interface. This is going to make it much easier. And then once we have it working on the pause menu, we'll know that it is functional, and that means we can go and transfer all of our widgets to use this method. Then any widgets going forward, we'll make sure to implement this on, and it will be a very nice system to have one method of sending inputs to our widgets. So I'm going to go back to event construct and remove my move up call here. That was just temporary. That was just an example. We're going to handle this in our player controller. That's what we'll start with in the next episode. That is how you can send inputs from somewhere, such as your player controller, to any blueprint or any widget that implements an interface. Again, incredibly powerful tool. It is something we will be using all the time in the series. And I wanted to make sure we did it sooner rather than later. That way we could save a lot of time on cleaning up blueprints and widgets toward the end of the series. It's just going to make everything a lot nicer to work with. If you enjoyed learning about how interfaces work and how you can use them on something like your pause menu, then please subscribe. It does a huge amount for the channel, and I'm really appreciative of all who have. Thank you so much. If you want to support the channel further, you can feel free to check out the link to the Patreon or YouTube membership or Discord subscriptions to not only benefit the channel, but also get some rewards along the way. And I want to say huge thank you to all who have. I'm really grateful for you. If you ran into any problems following this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. I would be happy to help you out, and that support is completely free. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.